the challenges of leadership at a first time leadership level, at a middle level leadership level, and at a senior leadership level, and how to overcome those challenges. So my request to you, Debbie, is that if you could just maybe, maybe you need few seconds. If you can just go back, I would want to take you back the memory lane, go back years and years, and think about that moment when you were chosen or you were given this responsibility of being a leader. How was that whole experience? And if you can take us from being a first time leader to where you are today and share some quick tips of your journey, which can help our audience to become leaders or grow as leaders. Over to you.
That's a fascinating question. It's almost like my journey of 25 plus years being, put into a capsule. So,
Yeah.
so, as you were narrating the question, there are different visions and there were different memories and there were different pictures, which were, I went into a flashback. So there were, my initial days of leadership. I don't even want to call it leadership. I think the initial days of carving out a niche for myself as a professional. Okay. I would actually wear overalls, which were not required for me to wear because I was a management trainee. I started my career as a management trainee in a 30,000 population factory, okay, in a state like Orissa, okay, and it was a tough business, smelting of aluminium, okay, and extracting bauxite from bauxite mines, both very tough journeys. And I didn't need to wear overalls, but then how do you establish your camaraderie and your oneness with people or with whom you are going to be actually doing your work? Because as I said, leadership can never be armchair. The moment you are behind a desk and you're trying to prescribe, you're better off being a doctor. You're probably not a good HR manager because human resource happens at the shop floor. And one of the things I realized that I needed to do when I joined as a management trainee is to break that image which I was carrying in my mind. And why I'm narrating this story is this can be one of the fallacies of the newbies who join organizations straight from B schools and E schools, with a little chip on the shoulder, with vanity written all around. Okay, they would like to be sitting inside cabins from day one, being addressed as a manager and a sir. But then if you don't rub your hands with grease paint, and if you don't sort of hobnob with people at the grassroots level, you will never earn the credibility that's going to take you miles in that journey. Okay, people will look at you with distrust. People will look at you as somebody who's better off left in a comfort zone. They would not even approach you, and you would be a failure in your job as of human resource. So there I was from Delhi in a state like Orissa. I was fluent in English. I was fluent in Hindi and my vernacular language, Bengali, but I didn't know Oriya. And, obviously, when you go from Delhi, your ways of dressing, your ways of being, your ways of carrying yourself is very different. So when I would walk into the shop floor, the workers and the supervisor would really size me up. And that was the first lesson I learned, that get your thick skin on. Okay, because nobody was going to do charity for you. Nobody was going to look at you and say, oh, here is this little girl, she's just come out of college, let's give her a good time, let's make her, let's give her a honeymoon period and help her acclimatize herself. I was left to the big bad world, and I had to establish my ability to move in that world on my own sense. The first thing I realized, Prashant, was that you had to learn the language. There is this question of son of the soil. A lot of people deride this concept of being son of the soil, but I think it's of great use, because when you are in a country as diverse as India, okay, and when you are a professional who has aspirations to make it big, you can't say no to any of the learnings that comes on your way. So the first thing that hit me is I can't be speaking in English to a group of people who can't speak beyond Oriya. So the first thing I did was to speak the language. Frankly, I had very good soulmates within my management trainee groups, okay, who actually coached and tutored me. And those were days, nights I used to take crash courses in Oriya. I picked up those little, conversion books, English to Oriya, okay, and I used to not sleep at all. And in the morning, red-eyed, I'd walk into the factory, but I would make my attempt to see Kemti Achanti so that, they at least understand that here is somebody who's making that effort. You see, you don't have to be fluent. Nobody was asking you to be fluent, but they wanted to see genuineness. They wanted to see beyond your skin. They wanted to see beyond your dress. I know it might be, sounding very archaic, but those were the days of 94, 95, which is when I started my career. And those were tough days, okay? Not as empowered and liberated as it is today. Okay, that's when I started going and sitting down with the factory workers in their pantry rather than have my lunch in the executive pantry, which was meant for management trainees. So we're wearing overalls. Okay, I actually pleaded with my management to give me a set of overalls. I wore those overalls, walked into the MES, which is the mobile equipment shop, where these huge alumina, ingots were being taken out. This huge machinery were all loaded, grease paint all around, and these factory workers would come out and unwind their tiffin boxes, and they would eat whatever they could bring from home. And it was a great feeling when you walked up to them and said that, I've only got this much, which was cooked by my maid in the morning. Would you like to share? Initially, very, very hesitant. Initially, it was almost looked at as a gimmick, but then you had to be persistent. You had to work at it. Ultimately, believe me, Prashant, when I walked into that factory after about 6 months, I had a solid following behind me. I had a sea wave of blue overalls following me everywhere. I didn't have to do any scouting myself. I had to then start picking up the stories. Okay, tell me, how many times does your manager visit the flower shop? Does he even have small group activities? Does he take communication classes with you? Does he listen to you? Where do you think the suggestion schemes are going? Are your suggestions even adhered to? They were full of stories. So much so that in 1 year's time, I can say with pride, with the help of those factory workers and the supervisors, we unearthed millions of dollars worth of equipment which were lying unused in a back junkyard. Okay, by some folly, some management had asked for it, but the next management, when they came, didn't make use of it. So they were all lying there. Okay, it was not even considered worth scrap value. But when we rehauled the whole thing and the current management actually decided to look at it objectively, there was savings worth millions. And there were a group of factory workers who were actually rewarded with 10% of the total cost. So that was an example that was set for the first time.
Wow.
And those were the kind of thoughts. So thought leadership is something which is not incumbent to you having salt and pepper hair. It's something which I'd like to suggest everybody. Whether you're a management trainee, you're a first-time manager, a mid-level manager, or whichever position you're at, thought leadership can always be practiced. Okay, maybe in the initial stages you don't have the opportunity to sit through board meetings or large meetings where cross section of leaders are there, but you can use your team, you can use your boss, as long as you are doing it in a non-threatening manner and you take people along and you make it seem like a teamwork, you will get your opportunity to finally present your thought. And once you make that mark, your leadership journey starts in true strength.